Though the transfer portal is closed, there is still movement happening. And today, though Iowa still looks for a backup quarterback, wide receiver very well could be even a more important position for this year's team. Iowa on a big-time target. He chooses Fresno State. Oh boy. Today, Locked On Hawkeyes.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes Podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We're available wherever you find podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube. While you're there, hit the subscribe button. Just takes you a moment and helps us get in front of more Hawkeye fans. Game off. We got to talk more about Monopoly Go. This fast-paced game lets you team up with friends or tournaments to unlock awesome prizes like unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends. So download Monopoly Go now for free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Well, the transfer portal continues to get a number of prospects that are Iowa targets. We're still awaiting the news of what's going to happen at the quarterback position. Now, there's some goofy theories out there. Is it time to welcome Deacon Hill back to the fold? Do you go that direction and say, you know what, we still need a backup for this season? Unlikely, certainly at this point in time. And certainly the story I relayed earlier in the week, you everydayers remember that one. We'll see about the validity behind it, but if that is true, yikes, not going to happen. How about Spencer Petras? He looks to be the starter out at Utah State. Hey, Spencer, you want to come back to Iowa City for your final season? At a minimum, be the backup? Again, both of those quarterbacks, there's just so much negativity there. And there's a lot going on, obviously, at the quarterback position. We brought up maybe a potential name down the line in Heward from formerly of Washington and Cal Poly. Could that be a fit? Former five-star quarterback. Didn't work real well at Washington. Had a decent season at Cal Poly. Again, we're talking about looking for a backup quarterback and somebody, if an injury strikes once again to Cade McNamara, going that direction. But another position that they definitely need is the wide receiver position. We know Iowa has been depleted. You look back over the last, 9 scholarship wide receivers, just one of them completed their eligibility, and that was Nico Ragaini. So when you go through and you look at that list and look at the number of guys that left early, guys that moved on and had successes other places, Charlie Jones being certainly at the forefront of that conversation. We see Jacob Bostic here after what looked to be finally a healthy spring. He goes into the portal. It's a very depleted position. It is working on a couple of guys that we haven't seen a ton of. Caleb Brown, I think, certainly has the most upside and the most excitement. We saw at least bits and pieces of that a year ago. And that's Seth Anderson, who, after bursting onto the scene, getting behind the defender, and nearly fallen over in the end zone, scoring the first touchdown of the season for Iowa way back in early September a year ago. Really wasn't seen much after that outside of running out there, running routes and getting his steps in for the day. That's all we saw for the most part out of Seth Anderson. Well, he was banged up this spring, and what else is there? Not a whole lot. You're talking about young guys. One of them, Alex Mota, he was out for spring, what looked to be a pretty substantial injury for him. Dayton Howard, guy from Kansas City that wasn't recruited by Missouri or Kansas State. Big receiver at minimum. Jarrett Bowie, maybe of those young prospects, the most intriguing guy from Florida that has some speed. He was on the travel team a year ago, but it's just not a deep position group. You look across college football, and many times you're going to see 11, 12, sometimes 13 scholarship wide receivers, and I was at about half of that. Incredibly scary going into the year. So they're looking in the portal, trying to find a wide receiver, and one of them was Raylen Sharpe, guy that started his career at Houston. He continued on, went to the Missouri Valley Football Conference. He was at Missouri State this past season, put together a really nice year, big numbers, elite level speed, and he visited home, went back to Texas, visited North Texas. All right, you can understand that. And then after his visit to Iowa City, he had one more visit scheduled, and that was to Fresno State. And today, we found out he's going to be a Bulldog. It's a tough sell. I completely understand the difficult nature that this is going to be for this Iowa staff to try to sell to offensive playmakers, to wide receivers, to even quarterbacks that, yes, this is going to be different. It's going to be the job of Tim Lester to be able to relay and bring to these prospects what they're going to be and why this is going to be different than what we've done over the last couple of years. And yes, we could have great memories of some great Iowa teams of the past offensively. When we think of the 2002 team, obviously the kind of benchmark and the tallest of all the offenses that we saw in the Kirk Ferentz era. But there's been other ones as well. 2009, 2010, statistically very strong seasons in those ones. 2009 was mired by a bunch of interceptions by Ricky Stanzi, and then a bunch of times he was able to bail them out and make plays late in the game, and Iowa was able to get up victories in that one. So we've seen it. We've seen at least competent offenses. Look, let's not make this out to be what it isn't. We're not suddenly going to be talking about an offense that's in the top 30 nationally in yards per game, yards per play. That's not the way they're built. It's not the way they're going to play. And it's just not likely with the team that they are right now. And with an offensive line that still has major question marks in its own right. However, there is hope. That's what you're looking for, is some hope. Can this team put it together and give you hope that they're going to be able to find a way to move the football consistently throughout the course of the season, because it got so ugly last year and over the last two seasons, just how bad it was. Improved play at the quarterback position will help. Improved play in the offensive line will help. And running back. How about the portal's closed and nobody in that running back room enter the transfer portal? You know what you have in LaShawn Williams, just a steady, solid Big Ten running back. That's what he is. Had the big play against Wisconsin. He had a couple others throughout the course of the year. He is a guy that is just dependable, right? A solid player, and you have him. Caleb Johnson, the combination of speed and power that he has, can he bounce back after a disappointing sophomore year? And then the two young guys that we saw a year ago. I mean, you got Jazion Patterson, who was the number 3 last year. He was also banged up. He looked like maybe he was passed up by Kamari Bolton. You throw into the mix the kid from Texas, whose name escapes me. Oh, terrible work out of me. Terrell Washington. There we go. Popped into the head. Terrell Washington, who's now over at wide receiver and doing some work over there. You got 2 more incoming freshmen coming in this year. Williams from Indiana and Brevendal from Central Iowa here at ADM Adel. You put all those guys together, it's an incredibly deep position, and nobody left, which is crazy. Just absolutely wild that it played in that fashion. Wide receiver still remains a need position. One of the more confounding things is we're trying to figure out who's this quarterback going to be that's going to come in. What are they doing at this point in time? Same thing at wide receiver. I don't want to say eggs all in one basket, because there's a lot more going on behind the scenes that we know. Even the recruiting websites know there's a lot more that's usually out there that we don't know about. But this one stung. Felt like an ability to add another speed guy to this offense and what they're doing and all the shifting and the changes that we're going to see schematically out of this team this year. You're hopeful to add another weapon out of wide receiver ranks. I'm going to guess they're going to still be shopping in the portal and see if they can set up some visits and get some more guys in here. There's players out there, and that's one thing that we do. No, maybe not as deep as it was in the past, maybe not as deep as it was a year ago when Iowa hit the transfer portal incredibly hard, but that's where we are. John Bohnenkamp covers the Iowa Hawkeyes for the Associated Press and HawkeyeNation.com. Had an opportunity to talk with John. Got that coming up for you. Plus, the Big Ten released its plays for the college basketball hoop season. That's right. Who Iowa will play in their double plays, the single games, home and away. We don't know the order of the schedule yet, but we at least have a little bit of an idea of the way that's going to look. We're going to talk about that, plus what's happening in the portal for Fran's squad, as Fran McCaffrey still continues to search for a big man in the latest on Matross, who was last at UMass in Iowa, was involved with him, along with Wisconsin, SMU, TCU, a couple of the other programs that are involved are the latest on that front. We'll get into that as we continue here. This is the Locked On Hawkeyes Podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Hawkeyes Podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. It's winner take all in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and a whole lot more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Good stuff there from John Bohnenkamp. Always appreciate his time joining us here on the program. As we continue, Locked On Hawkeyes. Speaking of that basketball team, the latest on Matross. What is happening with him as he makes his visits in Iowa, trying to hit the portal for another transfer big. Plus, the schedule's been released by the Big Ten. We'll break that one down as we continue. This is Locked On Hawkeyes. Today's episode of the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast is brought to you by Monopoly Go. All right, game off. We got to pause here and talk about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that, Condon, but there is just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. And the more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. Unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes. Cool new playing pieces to travel boards with. Hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot machine. There's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now for free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Trent Condon back with you one final time on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for being with us, and thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. As we wrap things up here today, a little look forward. Matross, the transfer prospect that I was looking at, a well-traveled Matross, and maybe that's something that does bear mentioning. I don't think we brought it up. Not only is he going to be going to his fourth university, was kicked off of Miami's team when he was there. Louisville had a coaching change. All right, that was odd. Then went home, played at UMass, and now is going to be looking to complete his career at his fourth institution. But not only that, also 4 high school teams. That's something to ponder. Fit, beggars can't be choosers. But again, as we kind of talked about with Sharpe at the wide receiver position with the football team, all your eggs in one basket, we will see. Look, Ben Krikke was a talented offensive player, but he was terrible defensively. He was not a good rebounder, and it was impactful a year ago. Cross looks to be a better player, a better prospect, but fit matters at the University of Iowa, and fit matters with Fran McCaffrey's program. And you can argue with it until you're blue in the face, but it is reality that Fran McCaffrey being part of the team, that is something that is incredibly important to him and the way that he builds his program. We'll see on that front. If it doesn't happen with Matross, what else is out there? One final note, the schedule has been released for the Big Ten coming up in men's basketball for 2024-25. The opponents that each team is going to be playing. That is 20 conference games that will be played in the Big Ten again this season, even with the addition of USC and UCLA and Oregon and Washington. 18 teams, only 20 games. I would like to see that number at 22. I know it'd be a difficult schedule that you're going through to make it there. And also remember, not every team is going to make the Big Ten tournament. Change from years past, even with the 14-team structure where everybody made it, not going to be the case going forward. So now you only play home and away against 3 opponents on a yearly basis. And I don't know if they are going to work overall and do this yearly where your 3 double plays, if you will, are going to be against teams that are regional, but that's certainly the case for Iowa. Their home and homes this year are against Nebraska, makes sense, Northwestern, short drive, and Wisconsin, another short drive. They make a whole lot of sense. You definitely understand that. So those will be the 3 teams, just 3 teams that I will play 2 games against in the Big Ten this season. Coming to Carver Hawkeye Arena this year, the Indiana Hoosiers. They have rebuilt and bolstered their roster. No love lost between Mike Woodson and Fran McCaffrey, and they're coming to Carver, as are the Gophers. Michigan State, Sparty. Yeah, that's right. We won't have to go out there. I know it's gone well, and I had Michigan State's number throughout the course of the last couple of years. Oregon, the Ducks are coming to Carver this season. Penn State, Purdue, and the Washington Huskies. That means road trips for Iowa this year. They'll be going to Illinois again. They'll be going to Maryland again. Michigan, Ohio State, long trip to Rutgers, and the two newbies they'll be traveling to this year. It'll be an LA road trip. UCLA and USC on the schedule. Does that mean we're going to go back to the old style that the Big Ten schedule used to be back in the 70s and 80s, where you had kind of a travel partner and you went out and played two teams? I would go out and play on Thursday night Michigan, and then on Saturday Michigan State, or vice versa. Or you go out and you play Indiana and Purdue on a road trip. That's something that they did for a number of years. That has gone away and has dissipated. But with the additions of the four schools from the old Pac-12, is that something that comes back and you go out Wednesday, Thursday, whatever it is, play a game against USC, and then a couple of days later against UCLA? Would make a whole lot of sense. And when we hear all the concerns about the travel schedule, you can definitely understand if that is going to be the case. With that, we are out of here. Coming up, we got some recruiting talk coming our way. Our man is going to be with us, the Lockdown Recruiting Guru, breaking things down, what I was looking at on the football scene for the class of 2025. That's coming your way on tomorrow's program. A lot of football, a lot of portal talk. Get you ready, get you ramped up. And as we make our way through the baseball, softball season, we get to really the big off season. Throwback Thursdays are going to be coming back. Looking forward to that as we go back and relive some great moments in Hawkeye history. That's coming your way on Thursdays. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Go Hawks.